Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. Our interview today is taking place at the Coquitlam City Centre Library, and we'd like to thank the library for providing us a space to carry out the interviews. And just before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that our interview is taking place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. So we thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on these lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. So today we're joined by Abigail Halu, who is the acting program manager, and Andrew Hicks, who is the acting assistant manager at 3030 Gordon Avenue in Coquitlam. So thank you both for joining me today. And can we just get started by maybe tell us a little bit about yourself? So Andrew, maybe if you wanted to start us off.
Sure. I just recently stepped into the acting assistant manager role at 3030. I've been at 3030 since 2019 or so, various roles, and now we're having some shuffling around with management. And I just recently stepped into Abby's old role, so we're just kind of moving on up. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, well, thank you. And Abigail, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at 3030 Gordon?
Yes, I'm Abby. I'm the acting program manager at 3030 Gordon. I've been with Rain City Housing for 3 years, and I've been in management role at 3030 Gordon for a year and a half now.
Okay, well, thank you. So 3030 Gordon is what we refer to as a low barrier facility in Coquitlam. Can you maybe, just for people who aren't familiar with what low barrier means, can you tell us what does low barrier mean? And why is it important for the residents at 3030 Gordon?
So 3030 Gordon is a low barrier program because we intentionally remove obstacles that oftentimes individuals experiencing homelessness struggle to overcome, especially those who are managing substance use and mental health challenges. And so our program eliminates mandates for sobriety, treatment enrollment, and complete documentation. And those who still may be using substances are welcomed and supported. I believe this embodies a true client-centered and strength-based approach, which allows us to meet people where they're at instead of allowing access on predetermined conditions. Our program practically provides private shelter units and dormitory-style accommodations for those who are seeking a shelter. All residents have access to 3 meals a day, 24-hour staff support. Our building is also a pet-friendly program, which
Another
could be
barrier if you're not allowed to bring your pet.
Exactly. And why I think this is important is because it closes a gap. High barrier shelters, strict transitional housing programs, even market rentals exclude those who are in the throes of addiction and mental health challenges. I can say that our program is a sanctuary for individuals with complex vulnerabilities that are oftentimes invisible and underserved.
What do you mean by complex vulnerabilities? Can you explain that term a little bit?
What I mean by complex vulnerabilities is, like I mentioned, for example, individuals managing substance use oftentimes struggle with mental health challenges as well. And so these challenges often go hand in hand and they're intersectional, which we can use the term complex vulnerability to describe.
So I think if I'm hearing you correctly, you're basically saying that everybody deserves a roof over their head. Like everybody needs a place to stay and call home. So despite the challenges that they're facing, can you talk a little bit about who typically would come to 3030 Gordon, and also talk a little bit about some of the challenges that they were facing that brought them to the facility?
That's a good question. Most of the people we serve at 3030 are from the Tri-Cities community. They come to the shelter due to different but overlapping challenges.
Mm.
Many are impacted by the fentanyl and opioid crisis.
Right. Okay. So we're talking some toxic drug concerns as well as overdose, concerns and drug addiction.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other challenges that would bring people there? Are there people with physical disabilities and that may have found themselves on drugs, trying to deal with chronic pain, things like that?
For sure. Again, that goes into the toxic drug supply.
Mm.
Another reason is the lack of affordable housing.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And so over the years, we're now seeing a growing number of people that don't experience the same challenges that we talked about, but have either been evicted or priced out of the rental market. And so
Wow. So you're seeing a lot of different reasons for people to come to 3030 Gordon. Okay, can you maybe talk a little bit about when people come there? What's a typical day look like? Like, what happens when you walk in those doors for the first time? What can a resident expect? And also, how do you sort of balance structure and a little bit and safety issues with compassion and flexibility? Like, how do you manage to get people through a day, and what can they expect from you?
So a typical day at 3030 Gordon, I would say it's built around routines. And so in the mornings, usually at 8 a.m., we have wake ups and safety checks.
Okay. What's a safety check? What would that entail?
A safety check is two of our staff members would be going to clients' rooms and making sure our clients are safe. That's a safety check. And we do that 3 times a day, and in the mornings at 8 a.m., one on evenings at 4 p.m., and then we do another one at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. So people at 8 a.m., they get their safety check. Are they required to do anything? Are they required to get up and leave, or do they come down for breakfast, or is it fairly flexible?
They're not required to leave their room,
Okay.
but if they're wanting to grab breakfast, then they would come down, have breakfast, coffee. And then each day we also host a variety of on-site supports. So depending on the day and the service provider that's on-site, they are able to meet with them in our facility.
Okay. And can you give us some examples of what kind of service providers or what kind of programs that they would have access to?
So iHeart, which is the Integrated Homelessness Action Response Team from Fraser Health, they're on site daily from 9:30 a.m. till 1 p.m.
Okay.
So that's a lot of our shelter program participants are connected to iHeart, and they work closely with them for on-site medical care, referrals to treatment, detox centers, filing their taxes, getting their identification cards.
Oh, wow. Okay, so lots of challenges that are sometimes hard to navigate on your own without that support. So that's interesting. So iHeart is there from 9 till 1 every day.
Every day.
And then are there other service providers or programs that residents would have access to?
For sure. So on Tuesdays, we have a doctor that comes in every week.
Okay.
We have a Tri-Cities mental health worker, again on Tuesdays. And we also have a parole officer that's there to connect with clients. On Wednesdays, we have progressive housing outreach workers to assist with housing referrals, housing applications. On Thursdays, we have a community integration specialist worker from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And so all these on-site supports are available for clients.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot going on there, a lot that maybe the public doesn't see. So lots of services and lots of supports, and even help in trying to find that transitional housing, the next step. Is that a challenging to find housing in the Tri-Cities? Or would they be housed in the Tri-Cities or elsewhere? Like, where do you look for housing?
A lot of our residents, like I said, are from the Tri-Cities, and so they want to stay in the Tri-Cities.
Fair enough.
And that limits our options when it comes to finding them housing, due to the cost, right? And even the lack of supportive housing programs in the Tri-Cities. So that's challenging.
Right.
But we do our best. And so, for example, we collaborate with BC Housing. If we have a client that's ready to move into a more independent market rental, then we're able to use those subsidies to kind of supplement their income so that they can afford places they would otherwise be unable to.
Wow. So you have busy days there. I'm going to ask Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about how do you support somebody's dignity? When they come to 3030 Gordon, they're facing challenges. They may not have a lot of trust in dealing with other people. How do you foster that sense of trust and of dignity? Sorry, that's a big question. But
No, that's good. Like right off the hop, like so when someone comes in there, it's the approach, right? So we have this non-judgmental, like all are welcome kind of approach.
Okay.
So it's doesn't really have to do with what someone has done in their past or like anything to do with that. It just has to do with like what they want to do, right, and how we can help. So there's so many people that we get that have had really bad experiences with service providers and that might not be properly trained or whatever. So we just try to do everything we can to make them feel
regain that trust and that sense of security and
it's like they're so like hypersensitive to the judgment and to the stigma.
Well, in dealing with trauma, and then you don't want to be dealing with more trauma, so sometimes there's that avoidance and not wanting to make those connections. So and I think a lot of it probably is relationships, right? Building those relationships, which you don't do that overnight. So it's
true.
You need somewhere to kind of have time to do that as well.
That's true. One of the other big ways, and this is super important to our work, but one of the big ways we employ a lot of staff that have lived experience. So lived experience, for those that don't know, are staff that have had substance use or mental health issues or homelessness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just basically like unfortunate life circumstances, really, that they've made some positive changes, and then they can bring that experience to our clients. And just having that experience is like they have a very unique capability to connect with our folks than someone that doesn't have those issues.
I think in that non-judgmental way, like I've been there, I hear you, I see you. So that's important too. And, even people with the best of intentions, maybe it's hard to know what these people have gone through, whether you care and you want to know and want to help. Sometimes having somebody who's experienced it kind of breaks those barriers down a little bit.
I think it's very important that we have both. Like it can't just be people with lived experience or without. Like it's got to be both. There's got to be a balance.
Yeah. So people that come in, I think, Abby, you mentioned that they're not required to have stopped using, so they can still be actively using. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with substance use? And also, when you're talking about those multiple vulnerabilities with mental health issues, so if you had substance use or a mental health issue occur on site or in the vicinity, what do you do?
As far as like substance use goes, like that's That's changed over the years quite a bit. When most people think of a substance use crisis, they think
Mhm.
OD,
Right.
they think overdose. These days, like our staff are well trained in that, but these days there's a lot more crises that can come up. Like with the toxic drugs that you
Yes.
were mentioning
So you have
earlier.
naloxone. Everybody's trained and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So everybody is, as far as I know, is very comfortable with the naloxone and helping with ODs. But then there's those other conditions like seizures and blackouts and
Right.
infections and having circulation cut off and having amputation and there's so many different crises that come up nowadays in regards to substance use, and it's and we do our best to deal with the crisis in the moment, and then just if necessary we just call the emergency services.
Call for some extra support there.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Like, it's not just an acute situation. Some of this is chronic, and you have those health issues that are ongoing and just adding to the complexity of the situation. So, yeah, it's not a simple sort of solution there. So some of those services that are provided, like, what are the most important services? Like, we've talked a little bit about some of the service providers that come in. What is the most helpful or the most transformative type services that can be provided to residents?
We talked about iHeart. Shout out to iHeart. They stick with us through some tough times.
They do some good work.
They do some really good work. One of the most used service and probably the most useful for us is the consistent wound care.
Oh, okay. You see, now a lot of people maybe wouldn't think of that, but wound care it's a specialty on its own, and it takes a special person to really be able to do that, right?
It does. Think about when people are out at war and they're out in the bush and they get a small cut, but it can fester and get infected and they can lose a limb just from not having the proper medical care.
Well, even gangrene or sepsis or it can.
That's a thing. That's a real thing. Within our city,
I know,
within the Tri-Cities, people are getting the street feed and the gangrene and flesh-eating disease. And, it's crazy that that's a thing within our city.
Within our own, I know within blocks of where many of us live, that this is happening to these folks.
Yeah.
Wow. So
iHeart, they give them that consistent wound care, and they're.
I wouldn't have thought that would be the thing,
right.
But yeah, thanks for sharing that.
It is so useful. Unfortunately, by the time a lot of the folks come in, their wounds have gotten fairly bad, and then iHeart will also kind of escalate it. If iHeart themselves need more support, then they can escalate it.
So they kind of triage things a little bit, and then when more support's needed, they can advocate for that.
Yep. They are very much a hub for other services.
Sounds like they do a lot of valuable work as well, working in collaboration with you.
Yep. And they're primary kind of like an outreach, nursing service. So they're even going out into the bush themselves, and they're going out into the community.
Okay.
Treating if it's necessary, they'll treat people in the community.
Right. So they'll go to the folks as long as you can find them.
Yep.
Is there an issue with people not wanting to be found sometimes, or being scared and not trusting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of in the Tri-Cities, homelessness has been kind of invisible for a while. They're not easily seen. That's because they're out in the bush.
Right.
They homelessness in maybe Vancouver or whatever. They don't really have that bush, but out here, they're just, for whatever reasons, they have that fear of just kind of being out in society or whatever the traumas are, and they just choose to be in the bush. That is safer for them. With all the bears and coyotes and all that, that is safer for them.
And the cold, wet weather
Yeah.
No. I can see there's many challenges, and you do look at a lot of heartache and difficult situations. Can you share with us maybe a story maybe an inspirational story, somebody who has really changed or found, hope at 3030 Gordon, and maybe include something that you might have learned from residents. There's many lessons here, I think.
Oh, so many. We if as long as we're willing, like we can learn something every day. We can learn multiple things every day from our folks. Like there's some really interesting characters. So tell a story about this one guy. For the purpose of this interview, we'll call him Steve.
Okay.
Okay, so Steve, so he was a pretty big player in the Tri-Cities underworld, right? So he grew up with the bikers and grew up with all those types of people.
I was gonna ask what you meant by underworld, but okay.
So like not just bikers, like the whole
sort of
gangs, that whole world, the gangs and organized crime and stuff like that. So he grew up in that world, and growing up in a world like that, he just became somebody that was just angry at the world, showing anger and aggression was a tool for him.
Becomes normal.
Yeah, like he described himself as just a very bad man.
Oh.
The thing is, like, he's insanely intelligent.
Oh.
And so like that aggression and violence combined with the intelligence
and frustration.
So he kind of rose up in the ranks, and he had a very decades long career in that. And what had happened was when his mom died, he wrote her a letter that promised her that he would again be the man that she raised, and he put that in the coffin with her. So that was kind of the start of him wanting to change. Took some time, but eventually he ended up at 3030. Got into.
So was he addicted to drugs, or?
Yep, he addicted, selling, the whole shebang. Very. He's jack of all trades, I guess I could say. But yeah, so he ended up at 3030. Ended up in our transitional housing part of the program. He's got some stable housing. So it's still he told me the other day that he was almost about to get kicked out within the first couple weeks of being in the program. But so over time, he was able to reshape himself and reshape the way that people saw him, right? And today, people respect him.
Wow.
And it's
a
not,
lot of hard work done there.
A lot. So people and it's not because, but before people respected or feared him, because of who he was in the streets.
Right.
So now he's respected for the man that he's become.
Wow, what a change.
He's an amazing man. As you can imagine, he also, during his stay, he chose to get a dog in a shelter environment, not really ideal in most cases.
But allowable.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of dogs in shelter environments are aggressive, and just from the environment they and the way they're raised and stuff. But he did an amazing job. He proved that it was possible.
And sometimes a bond with an animal that's not judging you for anything, and unconditional love. Sometimes that's important too, right?
Oh, the two of them are so cute together. He has a mobility scooter. Mm-hmm. She rides on it with him.
Aww. They sound like a good team.
Gets along with everybody.
And Andrew, it sounds like you keep in touch with these folks. Like you said, he went into transitional housing, and you were still kind of in touch with him. So, the dedication and support of the staff at 3030 Gordon, what keeps you going? There's a lot of negativity, and, you maybe don't get accolades as much as you should. Why do you keep doing the work that you're doing? And that applies to both of you.
It's the little successes, right? Small example. So when I told Steve about the interview, and that I wanted to share a little bit of the story, and I told him a little bit about what I was going to share. It brought him to tears,
Oh,
and it was because nobody had actually kind of verbalized what he had accomplished,
right.
right? And
To
so
acknowledge something
it was
like that.
it was extremely
Yeah.
touching.
Wow.
I didn't expect that in that conversation. I thought it was just going to be like yes or no, you can use my story,
Wow.
but like it was very touching.
So here's to Steve
Yep.
and his accomplishments. It's like
Absolutely.
a lot of hard work and
So
it's
those
wonderful
things,
to hear.
it's kind of a skill. Like we have to learn to do it. We have to hold on to the
What do you
successes that we
do?
do have.
Okay, so you're holding on to the stresses because you're exposed to a lot of trauma, right? You're seeing this day after day, and it's wonderful to have a good news story like that. And I think it's important that you do have to hold on to that, but you also have to deal with all the other things that are going on as well. So I hope you take care of yourselves.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is, and a great amount of gratitude for what you're doing there. It's important work, and I hope you understand that you are appreciated in the community.
I appreciate that.
You have talked a little bit about partnering with iHeart and different organizations within the community. Can you talk a little bit about how you partner with different levels of government?
So partnerships are essential. We can't meet the needs of all clients by ourselves, and so we rely with our connections to different health service providers, community partnerships, ministry, like I said, the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. BC Housing is another one, but also we work closely with RCMP.
Okay.
And so we have a liaison that we connect with regularly.
That would be an important relationship to maintain, I think.
It's really one of the ways that we maintain the safety of everybody in our program. And
building up a level of trust with the RCMP, because that could be traumatizing to some of the residents as well, just to see a police officer on site, right? So to have somebody who's respectful and can work together with you.
Absolutely. We make sure that staff are present during all interactions and they offer support as needed, right? Like you said, there is a huge mistrust between, our clients and different authorities. And so we're there to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that everybody is safe, including our clients.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's a lot of collaboration and partnerships to manage and maintain. Over the years, I think we've seen the unhoused population growing and the need for shelter beds and shelter facilities growing as well. So can you talk a little bit about how that's changed with respect to 3030 Gordon and how you've adapted? Like now there's sort of an encampment at 3020 next door. How are you managing with all of this and the increased demand there?
Well, like we all know the housing crisis and the rise in costs, and we hear all the time about how families have to choose between rent and bills and food
or buying their medication
Yeah. And so based on that, we're seeing a lot more types of people come into the
that's
shelter.
interesting.
And what I mean by that is previous maybe 10 years ago, the shelters typically were filled with people with substance use issues or mental health, mostly. Nowadays, it's pretty common that we support people that don't have either of those things. They just can't find an affordable place to live. So
wow, so you have people in 3030 Gordon who are not addicted to any substance. They have no mental health concerns, but they simply cannot
have jobs.
They have jobs and they can't find housing.
Yep.
Okay, so that says a lot. You're seeing just such a diversity.
Parents and their kids we have to turn away because we're only an adult facility. So they call and they got a little kid and we got to turn them away and
try and find somewhere else.
we refer them, to.
Wow.
But it's a crazy situation.
So for, we've heard like, oh, if 3030 Gordon went away, the problem would go away. I think most of us understand that that's probably not true, that we actually need more 3030 Gordons. We need more facilities throughout the Tri-Cities and beyond. So, hopefully at some point we will see more resources coming your way. Can you maybe just wrap up by telling us, what do you wish people in the community knew about homelessness, and also about the low barrier shelter at 3030 Gordon? What is it important for people to know and understand about this?
I wish if the community understood that homelessness is not about people choosing chaos or crime or even refusing to work. It's like we talked, people experiencing complex barriers like poverty, addiction, mental health struggles, and all of these, makes it hard for a person to keep stable housing and access consistent care. Addiction is also not a choice, it's a disease. It requires treatment and compassion, not judgment. Low barrier programs like 3030, it doesn't mean we have no rules. It means that we remove unnecessary obstacles for people who may still be using substances can come inside to rest, to eat, and to access services. And so we don't create homelessness. We're there to support individuals that are going through a hard time. There aren't enough support services out there, especially in the Tri-Cities, and we remain one of the few supports available to the growing population.
The only permanent shelter facility within the Tri-Cities, so you've got a big area to cover.
We do, and there is a huge need for similar programs that really implement client-centered approach and meet the client's needs where they're at. Like I said, instead of allowing access on predetermined conditions.
Right, so you have to meet certain criteria before you are allowed to come in. So you're saying basically we need more resources, so more facilities within the Tri-Cities area. And you had talked about client-centered, is that the term you used? Is that the same as wraparound services? So can you just explain that a little bit for folks? Like, when we talk about wraparound services or client-centered, what are we asking for? Like, what are you looking for?
So what we mean by client-centered is really pausing for a moment and thinking about the client's unique needs.
Okay.
Each client has, different needs and requires different approach. And that's what client-centered is. And so if they're, for example, not ready to enroll into treatment, and so we ask, okay, how can we best support them at where they're at, and what are the other things that they want to do, what are their goals. When we talk about wraparound services, it's once we get people inside the shelter, we wrap the services around them. And so I talked a bit about the services that we provide for healthcare, for housing needs, for treatment referrals, mental health treatments. And so, but in order to do that, we need the person to be housed. And so that is
that, like,
the
housing
housing
first
approach. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I really appreciate you both coming in and sharing that and helping us to become a little bit better informed about what the important role of 3030 Gordon is within our communities and all the hard work that goes on behind those doors, and also an inspirational story, which is wonderful to hear. So I hope that we can talk again in the future. And in the meantime, again, our gratitude for the good work that you do. And I wish we could get more resources sent your way.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and we've been speaking with Abigail Halu and Andrew Hicks from 3030 Gordon Avenue in Coquitlam as the acting program manager and acting assistant manager.